Okay, now let us see how we can disable versioning in SharePoint Online document libraries using PowerShell and PnP PowerShell. So basically, this is a video that I'm creating at the later stage after completing this all the entire course. So you'll see a different PPT and all these things. So let us see first what is versioning and then how this no versioning thing is missing in the SharePoint Online sites. And then we will see how we can disable versioning in SharePoint Online, especially in for a particular library as well as for all the libraries in the site. And then we will see how we can enable it by using PowerShell. And the same thing also we will see how we can do things using PnP PowerShell. So if you have not gone through PnP PowerShell, how to work with that, I'll just give you an overview here, as well as you can check the previous videos. There you will get the entire module how you can work with PnP PowerShell. Now let me open my SharePoint Online site. So whether it is classic or whether it is modern, that doesn't matter. But if you'll now look at here, if I'll go to the library and library settings, and then you can see here version settings. So this is where you can check the versioning. And if you are using a modern library, let me just show you. If you are using a modern library, then you will go from your site settings and you can go to library settings here. And the same thing you will see here versioning settings. Now, once you click on this, now you will see create major version, create major and minor or the draft version, but you will not see an option where you can disable the versioning. There is a no versioning was there, that option, but that has been deprecated by Microsoft. So that option is not there. That means from the browser, you will not be able to disable versioning for that. So what's the benefit you will get in versioning? So you can track the changes. So if a library has versioning, then whatever the modifications you are doing, you can track those changes, and if required, you can restore those versions and you can get the previous data basically, or whatever the modifications that you or any of your team members have done that. Now in SharePoint, by default, the versioning is enabled for SharePoint libraries, but it is disabled for SharePoint list. Now, if I'll open a list, so this large list is actually a SharePoint list here, you can see. And if I'll go to the site setting and same list settings, then if you'll click on versioning settings, there you can see that there is a version, create a version each time you edit an item in the SharePoint list. It is no. So by default, this is no. So you cannot, whenever you will open any or whenever you will create a list, by default, the versioning will be disabled. And one more thing you notice that in case of a library, there is major version and major and minor versions. But in case of list, only major version. That's the difference between the versioning of SharePoint list and SharePoint libraries. So in the libraries, you can have major and minor versions, but in the list, you will have only major versions. So that's the difference, and you can see here. Now in list you have the option where you can go, you will say that yes, then it will create the versions, no, it will not create the version. So by default in a list it is reachable, so you cannot have versioning on a SharePoint list. Now coming back to the library, now how, let us say you don't require the versioning, you want to disable it. Now what are the options you have? You can do this thing using PowerShell, and also you can use this thing using SharePoint object model. Those things you can do. You can use CSOM, you'll be able to do this. And in fact, we will see here how we can use CSOM with PnP PowerShell to disable versioning, as well as we will see how we can work with PnP PowerShell and you will be able to disable the versioning. Now let me just show the code and then you will execute it. The first thing that we are doing here is, this is how we'll use PnP PowerShell with CSOM. Sorry, this is what we will use PowerShell with CSOM. Now, if you'll see here, we require these two DLLs. If you have gone through the CSOM code, you will be able to know that these two DLLs we required whenever you want to work with SharePoint Online CSOM. Now, you can see here SharePoint Online Client.dll, SharePoint .client.runtime.dll. So these two DLLs required. And next question is where you will get it. You will get it from, you can directly go to the NuGet, you can download it, you can create a desktop application, and from there you can refer it to through NuGet package, you can refer it to CSOM, and then you can get these DLLs. But the other way is that you can download this SharePoint Online Client SDK. So this is basically, I'll put this URL also. So once you will do this, you can download it and you can install it. So when you will download and install, it will actually create the folder here. So if I will just copy this path here, you can see here, I'll just copy the path and I will open here. Now it will actually create this folder structure, and you can see here Easy API is there, and you will have all the client side DLLs are there. So you can get this DLL over here. In case if you are running this using a machine where SharePoint is installed, then by default this directory will be there from where you can use these DLLs. So this is how you can actually get the DLLs. Once you have the DLLs, then you can refer it in your PowerShell code. Now, not necessarily you put this path. You can simply put your D drive or E drive after you download this DLL. So that is up to you. Just you need to provide the path, not necessarily that EGAPI path or something like that. And then you have the site URL. So here I have this classic SharePoint site, but you can use your modern SharePoint site. There's no problem on that. The code will work for both classic site and modern site. And now then we are getting the context. So we are providing we are providing the site URL into this microsoft.sharepoint.client.client context. Once you have this context, then you can get the credential. So basically, to connect with your SharePoint online sites, you require to have your credential. You require a credential to work with, and this will actually open a pop-up where it will ask you to put your username and password, and make sure you have full access over there in that site. And then you can see here credential. So we are passing the credential.username and credential.password to this SharePoint online credential. And next we are getting the list. So in this case we are trying to disable the versioning for a particular list. Now you can see here context.web.list get by title, and I'm passing this library. This is my library or list, whatever name you can give. Since we are doing for library, this is my library title that I have given. Make sure it is the title, it is not the name or the internal name. And then list is having one property which is known as enable versioning, and we are making it to false. So if you want to disable, you can make it to false. If you want to enable, then you can make it to true. So if you make it to true, then a major version will be created. We will see that. And then list dot update and then execute query. So once you run, once you will do this execute query method call, then the changes will be reflected in the database. So I will copy this code and I will open PowerShell ISE. So you can use any of the editor PowerShell ISE, or you can use Visual Studio Code and then click on yes. So now if you'll see here, this is my PowerShell ISE. I'll just click on new document and here I'll put this code. Make sure you should have the DLL over there. And next what I'll do is I will just click on run script, or you can press F5. So once you click on that, then it will ask you for the credential. So make sure the credential that you will give here will have access to the SharePoint site. So tsinfo.onmicrosoft.com. So this is the site. This is my tenant or my user ID, and I will give the password and I'll click on OK. So once you click on OK, you can see here the execution has been done. You can see the execution has been done. Now I'll go back to our list here, or the library. You can see here. Oops, you can see here this one, testing one. So this is our library. I'll go to the library settings, and then you can see here version settings, and you can see here no version has been there, which was not previously there. Even in fact, if you now open this document library or the shared documents library, you can see here there is only create major and minor versions, but this no versioning option is not there. We have enabled it using PowerShell here. Now similarly, if you want to disable it, you can just make it to true, so it will actually disable here. And next thing is what will happen if we want to enable the no versioning for all the libraries we have, or all the list we have. List anyway you have the option, but for the libraries, if you want to do which you cannot do through the browser, so you can use this code. Now this PowerShell script, what we are doing here is we are retrieving all the list and libraries, and then you can see here I'm doing a filter which is saying that you retrieve the libraries where the base type is document library. So you have different templates are available. We are only picking up the document library. So if you have 10 document libraries in your site, once you execute this code, all the versioning will be disabled. So that's how it is. Now I will just copy this code and let us just execute once here. So I'll just put it here. Now look at what we have done here is in this site we have retrieve all the list and then we are doing this filter. So this is how we in PowerShell you can do the filter, and we are filtering where object is base type equal to document library. Now remember, if you have any library which is hidden also, in this case the versioning will be disabled. So if you want to only pick the libraries which are not hidden, then you can have a not equal to, you have to put that condition there. Now I will execute this code and then simply this is the for each loop. You can see here for each library in libraries. So it will check for all the libraries where the base type is document library, and it will disable the versioning. So enable versioning property, we make it to false. Now I'll run it and then I'll put the credential here. Now you can see here it is executed successfully. I'll go back here. Now this is the library where no versioning is not there. You can see only two options are there. I'll just refresh and you can see here no versioning is there now. So that means now you will see here that it will be for all the libraries. You have not specified any particular library. This is the library which already we have done that, but if I'll even in fact if I'll go to any other document library, it should be a document library. You can see here best practices document is a document library. And if I will go to the library settings now, you can see here library settings. Remember, this is a modern list library that we are opening. And if I'll go to the versioning settings, you can see here no versioning is there. So that means it's disabled for all the libraries. But if you want to make the versioning, or if you want the SharePoint site to create the major version, so you can just make it to true. So in this case it is true, and if I'll run it, I will say Vijay and this info dot on microsoft.com and I'll put the password. And now you can see here this code is executed, execution is completed. Now I'll go back here, I'll just refresh. You can see here create major version. I will go to our documents. You can see here this one also, it will be major version. So even in fact our testing library where which one we have executed for a single document, you can see here that's also versioning now enabled. So this is how we can use your PowerShell with CSOM to disable the versioning or enable the versioning for a single library as well as for all the libraries in the site. Now next thing we will see the PnP one. So if you have not gone through the PnP module, it is very simple. You can just run this command, install -module SharePoint PnP PowerShell Online. If you'll install this on your computer, whether it is Windows 10 or Windows 7, then what will happen is your PowerShell Online will be installed on that PnP PowerShell Online, and you can connect to your SharePoint Online sites from PnP PowerShell. And you can also use your PowerShell IAC to execute all the code. Now, next what we'll do is now in PnP it is quite simple to do it. So how we can do here is I will just execute the couple of code. I'll explain here. First thing is in PnP you can just use one line to connect over there. So you can see here connect -PnP online -URL. This is my site URL. Then -credential and get -credential. So it will ask again the same way. It will ask for the credential and then you can pass it and you can run the command directly. So you don't need to do all this parameter, all this execute query, all those things you not need to do it. So you can see just in 3 line. In fact, if you just put the library name directly, you just require 2 line over there. And here also same thing, but the command name is set -PnP list -identity, and then this is your library name. So you can directly pass or you can pass through a variable, and then -enable versioning. This is the property. This is anyway the list property, so the property name is same, and then false. So here we are passing false. So once you make it false, that means the versioning will be disabled here. Now I'll just copy this code and I will put it here. You can see here the testing here. Let me go to the library. This is Java. You can see here this is our set testing library and the versioning settings, and here only two options are there. Now I will go here, I'll execute this. Again, it will ask me for the credential. So I'll put my online credentials here. You can see here, I put the credential and the execution completed. If I will go back here, I'll just refresh. You'll be able to see here no versioning is there. I'll show you a couple of more things here. The other way simple thing is if you want to disable it or if you want to enable versioning, then you can just pass through over there. That's the simple. But the other way is whenever actually you will enable it, then it will create the major version one. So if I will actually run this code and refresh the page, I'll be able to see this one. It will select the create major versions. But if I want to select this one, create major and minor version or the draft version, then I have to just pass couple of more parameters here. First thing is you can just pass enable minor versions true. So if you do that, then it will select the other option rather than the major option. And if you want to pass the values, for example, in this case, whenever actually you are creating or you are selecting create major and minor version, in those case you can provide how many major versions you want. So for example, if you decide 100, then it will keep the latest 100 versions and the previous ones will get deleted the more people will modify the document. And same way you can also define the number of major versions or the draft one. So both the parameters you can pass here. If I look at here, you can see here enable versioning true, then major version 100 and then minor version 50. So what it will do is now if you execute this code, it will actually set the major version to 100 and the minor version to 50. I will just do this for this particular example. So I'll just execute it here. Now you can see here we are doing the enable versioning to true. That means the versioning is will be enabled now, which you can do through browser as well. Now I will execute here. Now once it is executed successfully, I will just refresh here. Now you can see here it is showing 150 because that is the value that we pass over there in this command. So set -pnp list command we pass, and then this is the value that we pass. So that's the reason it is creating major and minor versions, both the things, and also it is defining the number of major and the minor version that you want to keep it. So this is how we can work with PnP PowerShell or the PowerShell to disable versioning in SharePoint Online.